It's my pleasure now to welcome on the founder of Liminal Wellbeing and former Essendon footballer, Will Hams. Will, how are you today, mate?
Chris, good, mate. Really looking forward to having the chat and thanks for having me on.
Mate, the pleasure is all mine. I'm looking forward to getting stuck in here. We'll start off pretty easy. You're from the Gippsland area. You're from Sale. Talk about what it's like, I guess, coming from that part of the world and what it was like growing up.
Yeah, mate. Very proud to be a Gippy boy. Take a lot of pride in that, and all my mates who come from Gippsland that are now living with me in the Big Smoke. But I guess kind of growing up as a country kid, absolutely loved it. To be honest, couldn't have thought of a better kind of childhood. Really, I grew up in Sale, about 2.5 hours kind of southeast of Melbourne. And yeah, absolutely loved it. We were in a pretty kind of sporting environment down there. So was really lucky to kind of get involved in a huge amount of kind of sports at a pretty young age, which really kind of shaped my interest and really kind of suited me as a kid that kind of probably struggled in school a fair bit and struggled to sit still. So mate, that was awesome. And yeah, we had some great community around us, great people. I kind of have another brother, Tom, who's 5 years older. So, we had a lot of fun together kind of growing up and two super supportive parents as well. So to be honest, I had an absolute ideal childhood and very thankful and feel very kind of lucky to have grown up in the situation I did and grow up in the community of Sale.
So your brother's 5 years older than him. 5 years older than you. Was that a tough, I guess, upbringing, playing backyard footy, backyard cricket? Was that a real, I guess, beat down, or was he a little bit nicer than what I was to my younger brothers?
Mate, he was a pretty kind older brother. It was probably more his mates that were the ones getting into me the most. But it was probably that perfect age group or age bracket where 5 years, once he kind of hits his puberty years, he starts to grow probably double the size of me, and all of a sudden he's beating the piss out of me in the backyard. But Tom was a bit more of a cricketer, and I was probably more on the football side. Had a few kind of bouncers coming at me at half a length in the backyard, and then so he was a bowler, and his mates as well were all bowlers. So they used to love just bowling absolute pace at me while I was just kind of ducking and weaving and hooking around the potholes in the backyard. But he was a good brother and very lucky, and I guess probably helped me a little bit with my kind of sporting endeavors as well. Just kind of always competing with someone that was older, bigger, and better than me throughout my whole childhood.
Yeah, well, I was reading and you were described as a hard-nosed midfielder. So I feel like that may be code for has a much older brother and had to endure some stuff.
Yeah, mate, I think it is. I'm certainly, there's not much of me either. So it was constantly just bearing in and having to go. A few tears, get back inside. Mum and dad would give me nothing. So I'd go back out there and have another crack. So I guess somewhere along the lines, it taught me a few skills just to get in there and have a go.
Yeah, no, 100%. Let's talk about getting into footy. What sort of age did you start to play competitively? And I guess what was your first or your earliest memory of playing footy?
Yeah, I mean, I probably I just love footy from the get-go. Don't know what it was. It was definitely always my kind of sport of choice. And I guess kind of early days, whether it was at school, kind of playing markers up and trying to take hangers on people, or playing under 10s, and you kind of got to wear the helmets in under 10s and just kind of running around, enjoying myself. And really, I just kind of loved the whole team aspects. I kind of probably moved around a few clubs in Sale just because I moved schools and just wanted to play with my mates. And that was definitely a thing that I kind of enjoyed most, was just, whether it was walking to training after school or, celebrating after a game or whatever we were doing, sitting around watching the seniors as little kids and kind of having shots in the pocket. I just kind of loved all of that stuff as a kid. So I guess for me, kind of once it starts getting a little bit more competitive, I think, you start playing a bit of interleague in under 12s, and then under 14s, you probably move into high school and gets a little bit more serious. And then under 16s was probably where it all kind of really kicked off, and where you kind of start going through those pathway programs and, looking at, I guess, trying to be the best player that you can and trying to compete at the highest level that you can, and just kind of open the doors. And then kind of, I guess, probably going on from that, once you get into under 18s, then it really kind of all starts happening. But from an early days, yeah, just loved kind of having a kick and just running around with my mates, and happened to get a few kicks and go all right. And obviously having the older brother always helps as well. So yeah, it was just something that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. What age did you get involved with Gippsland Power? Because that's, you're not getting picked for that if you're just getting like, a couple of kicks. Like I had a couple of kicks and a couple kicked on me, and I never got the Gippsland Power phone call. So at what age are you sort of getting that? And when you're getting that phone call, are you sort of starting to think like maybe I'm pretty good, or where's your head out there?
Yeah, it's one of those things because Gippy is such a big area. So like you got to think around, we're from anywhere from Pakenham to Malakuta, and that's kind of like an 8-hour drive just about. So we're such a big area. So you kind of don't really know other than your surroundings, I guess, kind of who else you're kind of competing or going to be playing with. So that was a really exciting part. And I guess kind of playing other sports as well, like basketball and cricket, you do get to know kind of a few people kind of from other areas. And then once you kind of get to training at Gippsland Power and you get that letter, which is pretty exciting, you then kind of start interacting with the boys from other towns and other leagues. And I guess kind of there you start kind of working out where your fit is and am I any good or where are you? And for me, I was pretty small. So, I wasn't really too sure, but it was lucky enough to get picked in under 15. So I think that's kind of like your top age under 14s, bottom age under 16s year. And then from there, you kind of start that cycle of going from 16s to 18. So we were lucky. We had a really good side, which was awesome. We won that first kind of carnival or state carnival in under 15s, and had a number of boys kind of play Vic Country from our team as well. So I didn't get an opportunity to play kind of at that lower level, but we kind of knew that we were in a pretty good side in a good area. So it was a pretty good chance to kind of compare where you were against, some of probably what the best kids were going around in at least Victoria, and then probably country as well.
Yeah. Do you think for a large part having that really good side and really good players helps you personally as a player? Because for a large part, you see some players in struggling teams, they get the opportunity, but they sometimes don't necessarily go on because they don't have that competition to really push them.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think, that probably stems again from just kind of being a younger sibling where you're always trying to compete and get better and, always having to kind of push yourself. So I guess I kind of already had that. And then, yeah, definitely getting into a side where, you're wanting to be the best. So you got to beat the best. And so that kind of definitely stems in, I had a great bunch of mates that were kind of in sale as well, that were all kind of pretty good players. So we were always training together. We were all great mates, but we always had that kind of underlying competitiveness as well. So I think it definitely does. I think, you see it in any kind of high performing context or any context where people kind of want to be the best and as good as they can be. It definitely allows you to kind of push yourself, where if you do kind of stay in your shell or in your kind of little bubble where you do feel comfortable, then you kind of do miss that growth a little bit. So we were pretty lucky, I guess, with the team that we had, that we were able to kind of push ourselves and make everyone kind of around us better, I guess.
Were you this is a very personal question. Were you one of those little small nuggety midfielders that used to never stop chatting on the field? Because it's like the stereotype of that little midfielder who is literally sledging everyone all of the game. Doesn't matter how big they are.
Nah, that wasn't me at all. At all. I'm pretty much silent on the field, to be fair. I just kind of put the head down. I am vocal with like, I guess, our teammates and stuff like that in terms of positioning and whatever. But compared to, yeah, I guess sledging the opposition, I feel like they've got way too much on me, whether it's my name or whether it's because I'm a skinny little twig or whatever. So I don't even bother starting the chat. I'll just kind of, if it comes to me, I'll just cough it on the chin and say, yeah, look, that's probably fair enough.
Yeah, fair play. No, I can't argue with that. Let's talk about getting drafted. So you were picked 6 in the 2013 preseason draft. Now, obviously an incredible honor, regardless of where you get picked and sort of how many games you end up playing. But talk about going through that process and sort of, I guess, finding out that, you were going to be picked by an AFL club.
Yeah, it was, I mean, yeah, it was a kind of crazy, I guess, journey in that top age 18s year. I probably went bottom age, I went all right. I had glandular fever in my bottom age year. So I missed about half of the season at Gippsland Power then. And certainly was nowhere kind of near the Vic Country squads or anything. And I knew you kind of had to be there if you were going to be a chance to get drafted, and ended up finishing the year kind of pretty well. We got pumped in the final series, but we got a few boys drafted that year. And, I was kind of looking at them like, oh, look, maybe I can get there. But yeah, it was a long stretch. And then probably started the year off a little bit slow. And then just had one game where Steve, our coach, kind of put me half back and had a reasonable game. And from there, they kind of put me straight into the kind of Vic Country squad, and played the full carnival with Vic Country. And then that kind of started, I guess, that momentum of feeling a bit confident about it. And, you start playing better footy once your kind of confidence is up. And then I guess you kind of go through that whole process of going to draft camp, speaking to the recruiters, getting people come around to the house. And I guess I went into draft night feeling reasonably confident that I was a chance, without certainly knowing that I was no certainty. And we went to the pub. We didn't have Foxtel or anything at home, so we went to the pub, which retrospectively was the worst decision of all time.
Sounds good on paper.
Yeah, it does. It does. Bring a couple of people there and whatever else. And yeah, look, the night come and my name didn't get called out. And I guess kind of in that moment, you feel like as an 18-year-old, that's your whole world just kind of thrown upside down. But, obviously disappointing. All my mates were heading off to schoolies. I was kind of like, shit, do I go? Late minute call. But was fortunate enough to get a call from Merv Keane, who said, mate, we've got one spot at the Bombers, and we've got 6 boys that we're going to bring down to train. We'd love you to come down and have a crack and see what you can do. So that was kind of my one ticket to really kind of get drafted. And we went down there and obviously, kind of tried as hard as I could and got that competitive instinct going. It was a weird experience, just kind of one-on-ones and just competing against each other, but it was awesome. And then was fortunate enough to get a call a couple of days later saying, mate, we're going to pick you. And then I think the draft was the next day, and I was kind of on the track and already ready to go. So, mate, it was an awesome experience, and, something I'm super kind of proud of. Whether your career kind of lasts 100 games or whether you play one, just kind of have that experience of getting drafted and all that kind of hard work that not only you, but, growing up in the country, my parents did countless hours up and down that highway, going to Melbourne. So all of that sort of stuff, it definitely, you feel very lucky and grateful that you get that opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, getting drafted is such an incredible honor, but when you sort of outline that situation there where, football club, you've been overlooked for a draft, you've got that initial disappointment, and then football club calls you and says, hey, mate, we've got one spot and we've got 6 blokes. Like those other blokes, they're all in the same boat as you. They've all got that same disappointment. And so they're all gunning for it. Like, what was the interactions like when you sort of met all of these blokes? Because you're literally, it's a really, really, I guess, rare position that you don't really probably see in AFL clubs a lot.
Yeah, no, it was fully bizarre. Like, it was awesome though. I loved it. And Sammy Colquhoun, he got drafted to Port. I think maybe like the pick or something before I did in the preseason as well. So we kind of had a connection, and like straight away it was a 2K time trial into like another fitness test into a full training session. It was just hell for leather the whole time. But I remember I got called up and I was like, I've never even driven to Melbourne before. I'm like,
got your Melways out.
Mate, that's seriously what happened. So mum's is like, you got giving me the Melways. I'm like, mum, no way. I'm fucking thinking about driving with this thing. And I'm like, I mustn't have had credit on my phone or something. I don't know. Dad gave me an iPad that had data. So I had the iPad there, and I was going to stay at Hurls' house and was like put in Hurls and just followed this bloody iPad there. I'm like, wow, just so foreign. But even just like rocking up to Hurls' place, and I was like, wow, what is going on here? And then it was a full crazy experience. But I guess the funny thing is that I got to there was like one actually middle session, must have been on a Wednesday, I think, and it said Aberfeldy, and I was like, oh, that must just be some like, I don't know, circuit or training session or something, and didn't realize that it was actually a suburb. And I was saying to her, I'm like, yeah, I think I've got this training session. He's like, yeah, no worries. I'll just drive past the club and you can just go in there and do your session. I've got to go do this other running stuff. I'm like, yeah, all right, no worries. Sounds weird that you're going somewhere else and I'm not going there. But I rocked in and was kind of knocking on the door. No one around at all. I'm like, oh my
There's
God.
no one at Windy Hill.
No one at Windy Hill. I'm like, I'm in this trial thing. No one's here. I don't even know where to go. I don't even know what AFL is. And then anyway, our head of development, who was the guy essentially kind of like testing us and doing all these competitive drills, he was just on the treadmill, just getting to work. I'm like, mate, where do I go? He's just like, what are you even doing here? I'm like, oh, I've got to do AFL. What is that? And he's like, oh, mate, it's a suburb. We've got the running session. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, I'll take you there. So I jumped in the car with him and yeah, mate. And we ended up hitting it off and he ended up doing the running session with us.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my strength. So we were kind of at the front and having a chat. And I honestly think that was the reason why I ended up getting picked up. And now we're best mates. He actually coaches me at Old Zabs and, done a full circle. But yeah, I just remember rocking in that club when there was no one there, just going, oh, I'm done. I'm fully done. They're going to cut me.
Hard to shake the old dumb country boy tag when you do stuff like that, isn't it?
Oh, big time, big time. He was actually he still laughs about it, just how frazzled I was when I went in there. But yeah, good fun.
Let's talk about hurls. Now, Big Mick is a man I spent all of my high school years with, and was a bit of the golden child at Viewbank College compared to some of the lesser known footballers like myself, and got preferential treatment. But what did you think of the big fella, and what was it like living with him?
Mate, it was such a star to live with. Obviously, he's a pretty cruisy character. So yeah, mate, he made it pretty comfortable. It was pretty funny because like he had nothing set up really, I don't think, at the house when I just rolled in. So I didn't know what was going on. And he was setting up a bed downstairs, like his bed, and moving his bed into the room that I was staying in. And so anyway, he finally set it up and he's like, how am I going to get this up the stairs? So there was like three of us that had to carry this bed up the stairs, put in multiple holes into the wall, and then finally got it into his room. And I was just like, what is going on? That was my first night there. So funny. But he was a star. I lived with her for probably the first 3 or 4 months. And then the club put us into a bit of a share house with a few of the other kind of first and second year boys, which was good fun as well. But he still looks after me. We probably should stay in contact more. It does get hard when you kind of, both doing different things, but he's an absolute star, and it's a bit devastating for him, obviously, with the injuries that he's had in the last couple of years. Certainly feel for the big fella, but he's an absolute star of a human.
Yeah, no, he absolutely is. And he gifted me that many days off school because he was a freak footballer and a freak cricketer. I'll never forget. There's one day, I think it was against like Bundoora Secondary College. They had like 3 guys playing on him. And I think his old man was counting his stats, and I think he had like 45 kicks or something. It was something else. Like you'd think, with two opponents loose, someone like me might have a day. Nah. Like even then, I still couldn't get a kick. But no, Hurls is a special human, and we hopefully get to see him play footy again. That'd be great.
Mate, absolutely.
Let's talk about you've been drafted by Essendon. Let's talk about, I guess, getting into AFL football life. And you talked about the fact you didn't know what AFL was, and you've come from the country, and you're now in the big smoke. Football is your job. How does your mindset sort of shifted?
Yeah, I think to be honest, you kind of just go to work. Like you don't really think too much because you don't really know, and you're so just like you got no bias, I guess. You kind of just in there every day. You're just listening to what you need to do. You're getting told and just doing it. And I think I was really lucky. Dyson Heppel got drafted a couple of years before me, and we grew up together. I played with his brother Azza as well, so he kind of looked after me a fair bit as well, which was amazing to kind of have that. And then plus all the other boys that get drafted. I was very lucky to get drafted with Joey Danaher, who we're really good mates. And a few of the other boys, Marty Gleason and Jace Ashby, who, we stay in contact pretty frequently as well. So had a pretty good group to just kind of just bounce off. And yeah, you really are just kind of rocking up, going to training, working as hard as you could, and then go home and go to sleep and play a bit of PlayStation, and then you start the circuit again. So it was kind of, probably looking back, I lived a pretty boring life because I just didn't really know what I was doing, and probably had no independence that I realized that I could go off and do all this stuff. But I think I was just so focused on just, playing footy. And that first year kind of goes through a blur, but I was pretty lucky to, string together a couple of good games kind of early, and was able to kind of debut round 10. We had a really good side that year, and it was unfortunate we missed out on finals because I think we would have gone pretty far. But just to kind of be around, all those good players, like Job had just come off the Brownlow. He had so many good players that were around us that, that I could kind of learn off and, kind of model my game off and improve. So that was kind of really my focus for the first year. And then it's probably not until your second year that you kind of like start working out who you are and where your fit is, and start kind of navigating the city a bit more and feel like you can kind of explore and get out there and just kind of be your own person. I think that first year, it's pretty hard as a kid. You're just kind of wanting to impress and just do all the right things, and not really sure where that kind of line is. So that was definitely kind of what I found in that first year.
Yeah, I was talking about this to Clive Rose, who played Big Bash cricket, and he sort of spoke about how he felt so lucky to just be there. And I asked him how he sort of was able to change his mindset to go from that, I feel so lucky, to I belong here. Like, do you find that going from the first year to the second year, your mind is slowly moving in that direction?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you see that with a lot of the boys. I think, that progression from first year to second year, and you feel comfortable, and then you get kind of the new crop coming in. So that kind of gives you that bit of confidence that, they were just like me. And you kind of not those first year draftees. So, I guess I probably never got to that period where I felt comfortable and felt like I belonged and was able to play kind of consistent football for long enough to feel comfortable out there. But definitely kind of in the context of just whether it was just in the VFL or being at the club, I certainly did. It was probably more kind of just purely due to injuries and inconsistency and not being able to kind of string games together. I wasn't kind of able to feel that level of real consistency. And it's kind of does show. And then, those boys that kind of take that opportunity and go for it, and then kind of string together a few games, you can kind of see that build in them. And it is very much a time thing. It's like, just give them time, and that kind of confidence comes, and then you can see, what they really have. But I think in that first, I never broke that 20 game barrier, but in that first 20 games, you really are just trying to work out where your fit is. And it's only those kind of super freaks that straight away make an impact and start dominating.
Talk about your first game. Is it true that you were a sub?
Yes, that dreaded sub.
How is that? How are you feeling then? Because I've spoken about how much I despise that, because you've seen it twice this year with Wanganeen and Wanganeen Malera, I believe, both played their first games as the Medi sub. Like, it's obviously such a special day, but you're in that awkward, like, I'm not sure when I'm going on kind of a moment.
Yeah. It was a stinker. And they give you, back then they had like construction vests that you were putting on.
It looks so shit.
Oh, wowza. So yeah, that was my first game up in Sydney. We played Sydney, who won the flag the year before. We played them round 10. And I was actually the emergency. So I'd been emergency, I think 6 games of the first 10 rounds. And finally,
Am I a sniff here or?
Yeah, I was like, any danger? Someone going to roll their ankles in the warm up or what? But
can we get some food poisoning running through the team or something? What have I got to do?
Seriously. But no, Bobcat Benny Howlett, he pulled out, I think the day before we were up in Sydney. So was able to kind of get in and moved into the sub role. But, it was a great experience regardless. So I think I come on after half time. One of the boys got injured and, lined up in the middle against kind of Adam Goods and Jared McVeigh and looking at these players going, wow, what am I doing here?
I got lost going to Aberfeldy.
Yeah, seriously. Now I'm in the middle of the SCG, but no, it was pretty awesome. And then I guess kind of the sub role did kill me. Not only does it kill your overall career stats, which is I hate, but wasn't really my role. I'm kind of more of a grinder and work my way into the game rather than a burst player. So it was pretty tough, just kind of playing my first 4 games as a sub, and then finally cracked the dreaded sub and was started on, and then ended up getting subbed over in the West, and that was my 5th game. So wasn't the best start of all time, but still lucky I was able to get out there and play some fun games.
Yeah, I mean, it kills the averages as well because you're on for 20 minutes and you get 2 disposals. That's 2 disposals a game you're averaging.
Yeah, mate, don't look up the Wikipedia. My career stats would absolutely stink. There was way too many subs in there for my liking.
That's okay, mate. You're still going to average, let's say 13 more than me. You sort of mentioned there earlier injuries. That's just one of the things you had to go through, I guess, during your time at Essendon, both on field and off field. What sort of injuries did you sort of have to battle?
Yeah, it was a bit of a frustrating one. I wish I could just say that I did a couple of ACLs or something that broke a leg or something that everyone knows. But I ended up coming back from pre-season my second year just after Christmas, and was kind of feeling pretty good, and then just went down with what was a pretty kind of innocuous hip injury. But it pretty much debilitated my leg. I just had no strength in my leg. I couldn't even get it in the car. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. I remember I woke up and I was yelling out to Marty Gleason, who was in the room next to me. And I was like, mate, I think I'm paralyzed. So, because I just couldn't even like get the connection going to my leg. And it ended up being this thing, psoas bursitis, which is inflammation in your psoas bursa in your hip. And pretty much for, I don't even know, it felt like a whole season. We were just kind of trying to rehab it, cortisone it, build up my load, and then kind of get to that point where we could play. And as soon as we kind of built up that load and tried to get some Ks in the legs, it just kind of, again, just blew up. So ended up getting that kind of removed in my left hip, and there was a few other complications that we got cleaned up, and didn't play a game that season in my second year. And then kind of come back, played the first couple, got a couple games in the AFL, and then got dropped, and then played in the VFL, and the other hip just did the same thing, and kind of tried for a little bit of a while to do the same thing and load it up, but wasn't to be. So ended up missing that third year as well, pretty much for most of the season. And yeah, it was just such a frustrating time because, it felt all right to walk around. It was just, I couldn't get to that next level, and then I'd just kind of go downhill. So super frustrating, and a kind of a weird injury that no one even know about. But it was so frustrating, and lucky that I don't have any issues with it all now, and the hip's feeling really good, to be honest. So yeah, just a frustrating period because it was just kind of right in that middle years of my footy.
Especially when you're in your like second and third year, when you've kind of had that taste of footy as well. And, you said that, you're seeing the new draftees coming in, and you're seeing these guys get to that 20 game mark and start to figure it out. And you're sort of like stuck in this, like plateau almost, where you're trying to build up the legs and you're falling back. Like, how do you stay, I know it's probably a really, really stupid question, but how do you stay positive when you're sort of in that environment?
Yeah, well, I guess that probably kind of leads into some of the work that we do now. And I think a lot of it kind of comes down to perspective, and I guess the other things that I try to do kind of outside of footy. And I think I spoke about earlier around kind of finding yourself a little bit from that first year to your second year. And for me, that was kind of, I was finding that balance a little bit more. So I guess maybe in that first year, I probably didn't stay connected with my mates from school and from home as much as what I probably would have liked to. And in that second year, that's kind of what I tried to really focus on, is not kind of stick in my own little world and little bubble, which is when you can really start diving down the train of feeling pretty bad. I kind of really made an active choice, just kind of like when I was out of the club, I was separating myself. I was connecting with my mates. I was doing other stuff. I couldn't surf or do the physical stuff. So I was trying to find other things that I could kind of do that I'd enjoy. I picked up some study and all those sorts of things that you just kind of got to do. Otherwise, if you kind of just sit in your own bubble of thoughts and rehab and frustration and not being able to do what you want to do, then that's when it kind of really starts eating away. And don't get me wrong, I certainly wasn't perfect and I was super frustrated, but yeah, I kind of found that balance and would make those kind of fleeting moments of being upset or frustrated really small, and then really kind of focus on, making a positive impact or doing everything that I could in my rehab just to get myself better and know that I was kind of, doing the most that I possibly could. And that was probably my mindset for the 2 years, really. It was just as frustrated as it was, just looking on the positive side.
I mean, challenging yourself to essentially look for, I guess, ways to fix a situation is not necessarily as easy as it sounds, especially when you're in that kind of a rut, you would call it. Like, how do you even start that? Like, where you go, all right, I know that I could potentially be heading down a slippery slope here. I've got to find something.
Yeah, I think I guess for me personally, and it is so different for everyone. And I guess again, I was really fortunate in the fact that my parents were pretty open around, I guess, mental health across our family, and I guess kind of the common occurrences both genetically on both sides. And they were very kind of adamant around how we were able to kind of support our health, not only kind of on a physical sense in terms of physical activity that we're doing, but whether it was the food that we were putting in. I had a gluten-free diet from when I was pretty young because I was kind of really struggling to develop, and or whether it was kind of the mental side around kind of making sure that we were talking to each other and having pretty open dialogues. So I was really lucky to kind of learn those skills and what that kind of meant, and being pretty open about, I guess, how I was feeling at a young age. And so I guess I was lucky to translate that through to that time. And then being in a kind of high performing environment, it's so good to have so many great networks there to kind of lean on. Like, we had a performance psych that was there full time that I was able to kind of leverage as much as I possibly could. And that was when we really kind of started diving into these other more kind of mindfulness based or more kind of prevention stuff that you could kind of look at. And that's where my real interest in terms of, I guess, the mental toolkit and mental fitness side come into it. And yeah, I suppose, I guess really lucky that I was kind of able to have that pathway to be able to open myself up to it. And for others, they might not even recognize that that's an option for them, or how to go about it, or what it even looks like. So for me to kind of be open and then be able to work with, a really kind of high performing psychologist in that environment, plus all the other kind of, physical side of things that I had, was super lucky. So I guess with that, we kind of really focused on, what we could do rather than what we couldn't. And all those things around kind of connecting with family and friends, and, mindfulness stuff, and being present, and focusing on the positives, all those things kind of come into play.
So essentially you're kind of starting, I guess, you're starting the sort of early stages of liminal and what it sort of is without kind of knowing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that was kind of the trend, even kind of following from football. You do find yourself at times feeling a little bit lost. I think you lose that kind of connection to the club and that bit of purpose and that sort of stuff, which was all the stuff that we worked on. And so for me, it was kind of reconnecting both kind of with all those skills that I had in a context that was outside sport and a sporting environment, and more of kind of life choices that I was making, whether it was around kind of the purpose and values that I wanted to live by, whether it was skills that I was trying to train, whether it was around kind of meditation, or whether it was around kind of things that felt good, like cold therapy or creating affirmations and these sorts of stuff, that I just wanted to kind of work out where my fit was and the tools that I liked. And what I kind of found was that, I was trying a lot of different stuff and enjoyed trying lots of different stuff. So I didn't stick to one thing. It was kind of trying everything, and what I liked, I'd stick to, and had a lot of kind of, I guess, variety in the things that I was trying. So whether that was, getting into a bit of yoga and kind of hot kind of Bikram yoga as well, or whether it was doing floats or whatever it is, kind of trying out different stuff to see kind of what worked. But, now kind of more in terms of, I guess, with a bit more research and the work that we're doing, I've been able to structure that a little bit more, where at that point in time, it was kind of just a bit of floating mess that, I wasn't really sure what I was doing, but I knew that it was kind of making me feel better in the situation that I was in.
Yeah, I talk about that sort of finding yourself, I guess, after football. Like, the last couple of years of your time at Essendon were, incredibly difficult. You've got the drug saga in 2016. You're delisted and then sort of redrafted, and then obviously, being delisted again. And you sort of mentioned when we were chatting before that you had struggles with anxiety and what. Talk about, I guess, coming out of such a volatile sort of period and really trying to reclaim yourself and form an identity as, I guess, Will the person and not Will the footballer.
Oh, absolutely, big time. And I think that's an identity thing that, yeah, a lot of people kind of go through, whether that's, from school and the person they are at school, and maybe not that's the person they are outside of school, or, in a sporting context for their, that's kind of how they've defined themselves. And once you kind of lose that, do you lose that bit of identity and purpose? So yeah, for me, that was definitely something that I kind of had to go through. I probably, by the end of my time in footy, probably resented it a fair bit, lost the love for it, as you kind of do. And it definitely felt more of a chore than it did of something that I enjoyed and something that I loved, like what I did when I was a kid. So I guess kind of going out of footy, I definitely wanted to kind of separate myself and work out who I was, as Will the person, as you said, and not Will the footballer. And kind of got myself in a job in construction, and was lucky to kind of just try something different. I'd only worked in a chicken shop as I was a kid kind of at school, and then got drafted. And then, you kind of don't even really have a real kind of grasp or concept of the real world, because you are in a bit of a bubble. So for me, it was just, about going out and exploring that and taking up some opportunities that potentially I wasn't able to kind of grasp when I was playing, that maybe my other mates did, like travel and that sort of stuff at different times. And just really trying to find the things that I enjoyed. So went in kind of construction and had about 18 months there. And it was a great experience in terms of just learning and being on your feet and trying something different, and having that kind of structure and routine. As I was saying, I was playing VFL, so kind of having all those things as you're kind of working on was a full new challenging experience, both mentally and physically, balancing VFL and work. And then probably, I guess I had a moment, maybe 18 months in, where I just kind of realized that, that wasn't really for me, construction. And I kind of felt like, going back to the principles that I was kind of working through when I was playing footy, I just really loved interacting with people and socializing and making people kind of feel better. So that was kind of where my shift really went from, I guess, thinking around, what is my purpose? And through kind of a series of different activities and kind of working with the psych and things I did, I kind of developed a purpose statement that's to learn, connect, and guide others to flourish. And kind of what I started doing was really kind of building a picture of the person I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And I guess kind of through a series of going traveling and kind of spending 6 months backpacking and enjoying time with my girlfriend and meeting different people, to coming back into a job that I absolutely loved, which was working with young people, and then kind of continuing to study in the field of positive psych. I was really able to kind of build out a bit more of a framework around that. But, it does take so much time and takes a bit of soul searching. And, it does sound to some pretty foreign and pretty weird that, you would have a purpose statement. It's like, what is that? But for me, I think that's just all the things around kind of creating the person and the life and the job and career and picture that you want to be and how you want to live.
No, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And, it's one of those things when you are sort of in that transition period where you're trying to, I guess, work out what are you going to do with your life. Like you mentioned there, you'd only worked in a chicken shop. Like you wouldn't even have a resume. And here you are as like a 22, 23-year-old. You need those kind of core values and core beliefs to sort of go, all right, every interaction, everything I do is going to be based around this. And if I do that, I'm true to myself. And then, things will essentially work themselves out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I'm a big believer. I live by a life motto of shit always works out. And, there's an extension of shit always works out is that, you got to be a good person, you got to put the work in and all of that. But, my girlfriend always, we've just started a business, and it's pretty volatile when you start a business. It's a rocky road. And my girlfriend's always just like, how are you so happy, or how are you so confident? I'm like, because things just work out. And for me, it's just like, just keep trying and putting your best foot forward, being the best person you can be. And at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? So yeah, whether things fail or whatever, and I've done plenty of failures, that's for sure. But it always turns into a learning experience and something you can leverage on the next time. So yeah, I'm big on shit always works out, and yeah, that takes a lot of work to make sure that that happens. But I think yeah, that's something that I've just tried to continue to live by, and whether that's going after jobs that probably not quite qualified for, I don't even know what I'm doing, or going for coffees with people and I'm not even sure what I'm going to talk about, or jumping on a podcast where that might be outside your comfort zone. Like all these things, you're just like, oh, well, why not just have a crack? What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly. If the worst that can happen is you have to get stuck talking to me for an hour, then I think you're doing all right. Let's get into liminal wellbeing. So it's essentially a management system that allows wellbeing teams to effectively manage and monitor the wellbeing of individuals, groups, or sort of co-workers. So I guess talk about that's just a brief overview. Talk about starting that, I guess, in the early days, and sort of what the initial aim was.
Yeah, absolutely. And it certainly, sorry, has shifted probably from the initial aims. And again, turning lemons into lemonade, or shit always working out. I was one of those people that got affected by COVID. I was working for a travel company at the time, and
Same here.
obviously, yeah, obviously being and working in education. So we were running programs in school. So school shutting down, the kids, working remotely, or studying remotely, to travel pretty much being non-existent for 2 years. I found myself out of the job pretty quickly and pretty unexpectedly. But I was kind of, I guess, toying around with this idea of liminal, and still didn't really know what it was. I didn't have a name for it at the time or anything like that. But my idea was that school for me was really about learning skills, whether it was around social skills, or in a sporting context, or being able to speak to people, and all those skills that probably wasn't so academic orientated. And what I was kind of looking at was building an app for young people that they could kind of do exactly what I could do, and that was around developing strategies and a framework around their mental health and well-being. And I felt so fortunate to be able to go on and play professional sport, and work with a psychologist, and study kind of in this field, and understand, I guess, the evidence, and also the impact that it's had on my life. And I just feel like this should be more accessible to everyone, and it should be done in a more engaging way. You see, whether it's Dusty Martin doing journaling, whether it's Dyson Heppel doing everything under the sun to kind of support his well-being, actually kind of using those people to really inspire and engage the young kind of generation coming through, but obviously developing the framework that's evidence-based, and that kind of comes from a bit more research, and it's not just here to kind of share a good story, but actually has some kind of substance around it. So I guess kind of from my point of view, I've been using meditation apps and fitness apps, and particularly in COVID, you're using every kind of app that you possibly think of to make yourself feel good, and kind of wanted to create something that streamlined that in a really kind of engaging educational way, that had stuff for your physical health, had stuff for your mental health, and had stuff for your social health. But then wanted to align it to what I guess an organization can use as a management tool for being kind of proactive and preventative around mental health and well-being. And for me, pre-COVID, I was working for a travel company that was facilitating international programs for schools. And what we were doing was providing experiential kind of learning experiences for kids at 14, 15, 16, that they would have got when they were kind of 19, 20 going backpacking. We kind of gave it to them when they were at school before they went into those nitty gritty VCE kind of years. So
Hopefully not all of the experiences that you get
yeah,
backpacking.
probably not all the experiences, but a little bit, I guess, G-rated, PG-rated version of it. And yeah, we would kind of take them away to developing countries where they'd do a project and live in a local community, and work on a project at a school, or building infrastructure in a pretty kind of remote and underdeveloped community. And then they'd do a trek and they'd kind of lead this all, whether it was in Nepal or Cambodia or wherever. And then they would kind of just facilitate their own kind of backpacking experience, whether it was jumping on a bus and going from here to there or whatever. So it was just so sick and the kids loved it. But what I found was I really wanted to kind of reinforce all these kind of learning experiences that they're having back in the classroom with this management tool, and then kind of have all these other kind of strategies that they could keep kind of reinforcing with and building out what that toolkit is for them, because it's, you know, different for everyone. So that was really the concept, and it was kind of a bit everywhere, and it took a lot of refining. But what we kind of come to was liminal, and I kind of come about this word liminal, around this liminal space, and it essentially means the space between what was and what's next, and that kind of period in between where, you know, you're trying to work things out, where you're kind of growing, developing, and feeling vulnerable, and you kind of get to that next stage. And it's kind of, I guess, being outside your comfort zone. And I was like, as soon as I heard this word, I was like, this is it. Like, this is what
This is
we're
my
doing.
word.
This is it. This is the product. This is my word. And it kind of capsulizes everything that we're trying to do with this management platform. So I guess what we've kind of been able to build out is a really cool app for individuals that then kind of partners with a management tool, which is a web app that organizations can use to manage support staff, to be able to kind of monitor check-ins, to be able to proactively support individuals and identify anyone that does need support, as well as being able to kind of upload or integrate whether kind of programs or initiatives or employee benefits or student resources and programs that they have within either a school or an organization, that they can continue to use and follow up and reinforce, rather than having a one-hit wonder of a presentation that everyone loves and then it kind of falls behind the wayside. We're kind of using this app as a bit of a tool to upload, you know, videos or resources so they can continue to reinforce those learning outcomes that a lot of programs are doing, whether it's within schools or whether it's within workplaces. So having a system that can kind of have all those benefits, and then ideally overall creating a better kind of environment through kind of these changes in culture and well-being, to make it a better place to either study or to work or to be involved in.
Oh, I mean, when you say one hit wonder, like I can only think of some of the places that I have worked in, big corporate environments, who do like to talk about the fact that, you know, they there for employees' health and well-being, and, you know, they'll do a speech or they'll do a seminar with, you know, with someone to do a nice talk, and then it sort of falls away. There's no follow-up, and there's no, you know, extra resources there. It's almost one of those things that's like, to me, for a lot of the part, it feels like they're ticking a box. How, and this is that's more of a statement, and here's a question. People like yourself and myself, we're obviously probably more open to talking about sort of what we've gone through, how we're feeling than other people. Is that kind of the target market, those people who are sort of, you know, not there, and it's completely fine to be like this, to not put their hand up and say, hey, I'm really not feeling it today? Is, you know, that sort of, I guess they feel a little bit more comfort from, you know, doing it from an app where you can sort of do it in a judge-free zone?
Exactly right. I think, you know, there's probably two elements. There's that side of, you know, giving people the autonomy to have a crack at a few different things, and then the resources are there, and, you know, it is kind of on them, and they have that ability and agency that no one's going to be kind of forcing this down your throat. It's there as a resource for you, and give it a go. And it might not be for you or whatever, but just have a go at it. So there's that side of things where that's what we've designed the app for. It's like, you know, you might not be that interested in, you know, doing some HIIT exercises or yoga or whatever, and, you know, but you might be interested in doing a meditation or developing a purpose statement or identifying your character strengths, or you might be interested in finding out other ways that you can support a friend, or the benefits of random acts of kindness, and these sorts of things that, you know, just giving them out and giving them a platform where they can have their own agency about going about it is a really cool thing. And hopefully it can kind of trigger or spark that change, which sparks a positive cycle where they're like, all right, this is something I'm interested in. I'm going to explore more. And then off they go, not just in the app, but off they go signing up to a gym or signing up to a men's club or a women's club or whatever it is that they're interested in, just through a simple spark of the app. So that, I guess there's that side. And then on the kind of management side and how we can kind of improve the way that we support everyone's health within an organization is just by doing a simple check-in, which is what we have on the app around your physical, your emotional and social health. It's a very simple way to take 10 seconds for some self-reflection on yourself, but also giving enough information and a high level of information to start a conversation if you've identified someone in your organization as the wellbeing management team or people and culture. Say, geez, I haven't spoken to this person for a while, or they're working from home, or they're distant, or whatever's going on. You have a conversation, whether it's by the office or via phone, and you start to uncover a few things, or you start to facilitate. And then if you've got an employee assistance plan, you're able to kind of build that bridge to kind of get them there. Or if there's programs that you're running, make them more accessible, make them more reinforcing, so that you can kind of use that and continue to create this kind of environment that enables people to kind of feel their very best. So there are kind of different moving parts in it, and it is ideally, everyone kind of has a crack, but we know that not everyone's going to be into this sort of thing, which is absolutely fine. But even with our management tool, it doesn't just rely on people using the app. It's really around kind of, if you've seen anything or if there's an incident and you come up in person, you're able to kind of keep a record around this, and you're able to identify what are the common areas of support around our organization. Is it burnout? Is it workload? Is it relationships? What is it? And then what are we doing to actually kind of support this environment to improve it for everyone, for even those people that haven't asked? And that's kind of what we're trying to do through this whole kind of system.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, I know you sort of mentioned before that you're one of those people who, is like, all right, I'm going to go try yoga. I'm going to go try Bikram. I'm going to go try this. I'll try that. And that it might not necessarily be for you, but you're not afraid to try that. For a large part, people are. Do you think that this is one of those things which is really going to spark people to, get them into that mindset, so that, they might go out and try, yoga, don't like it, but they've actually challenged their mind to get out of that first gear into that next gear, which is so important, which is actually having the mindset to go, all right, I'm not just going to, sit in my room. I'm not just going to do nothing about this. I'm going to actually put myself out there and try.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that is certainly the goal. And, again, we know that's not going to be for everyone, and other people are kind of set in their ways, but they're very happy people. And that's cool as well. It's kind of, again, with well-being and why it's so difficult, but so amazing, is that, everyone's different, and what works for you doesn't work for the person next to you, or will work for the person next to them. So it's about kind of finding out what works for you. And, hopefully through this, it does create that spark. If someone's kind of like, geez, I don't know if I want to go to yoga, it feels really weird, I've never been before, I don't really feel comfortable, but they kind of do a couple of sessions at home in their own kind of comfortable space, and that's enough to kind of create this little leadway to get them there. Or if we've worked with an organization and we've created a partnership, and there's another added incentive for them to kind of go there, then there's kind of different ways to kind of make that trigger. So that's kind of what we're trying to do a little bit with Liminal. And yeah, as you said, hopefully, and we have seen some really kind of positive feedback around kind of the different sparks and changes that it's been able to make on an individual level, but then also on an organization level around what they've been able to identify, but also about what they've been able to kind of integrate. And as you said, whether that's kind of programs or initiatives that they run at organizations, they've been able to kind of see that, identify that this is a need, and then be able to kind of implement it, which is, absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Talk about it from a point of view from like a football club. So the last 2 years, football's been pretty sporadic in terms of how many games have been played and whether the season's been finished. And for a large part, the whole appeal for a large part of local football has essentially been taken away, which is around connection and community. How have you found Liminal has sort of been able to work in something like a football club, football environment, and sort of where do you see it? I guess, do you see that as essentially your one of your big target markets or target areas?
Yeah, I think for us, we see such a big impact there. And it is kind of, in a business sense, balancing all of that. But we want to be a social enterprise, and this is about kind of giving back to the community. And that's kind of what we're doing in a football club context, is being able to provide our platform at a pretty kind of, I guess, affordable rate for communities to be able to adopt across, mostly sporting organizations, which is super cool. And again, as you said, COVID had a big impact on so many people's lives, whether that was through work or families or whatever it is. And a lot of that time for people that are in community sport is that outlet. And for 2 years was kind of taken away. And I see sport and kind of community sport is the perfect kind of framework for well-being. It gives you kind of the physical activity. So you're getting out there, you're moving around, you're running around with your mates. It gives you the social side where you kind of just having a bit of a yarn and you're talking about anything, and you might be having a beer with your friends, and it's just awesome to kind of stand around. And then it gives you that mental break, whether that's away from work or away from home or away from study or school or whatever it is. So it literally ticks off all those 3 areas that as individuals, I believe that we need. So that's why I see it as such an empowering kind of environment. And for a lot of people, that's where they feel they're most comfortable. Most football clubs that we're working with, everyone is volunteering their own time to be there. They're not getting paid or anything like that. So, they're there because they want to be there. And, we've been able to kind of work with them purely from them reaching out to us to say, is this something that we can adopt? And we've kind of created it so they can do it. And I think that's just amazing. And we've seen some really awesome benefits of, being able to use the management tool and the check-in as a way to kind of be following up players, but then also kind of using it to be able to kind of manage whether it's anything that the club is supporting them, whether it's around welfare support, whether it's around, pastoral care as well, or whether it's around housing or job opportunities and all these sorts of things that, people go to sporting clubs for. So I think that's where we see our huge kind of social impact around, what we can provide all individuals that are involved in kind of community sport, rather than just working in, say, the school and corporate space as well.
With everything that comes with mental health, it is such a difficult thing to sort of, I guess, see. So I don't know what's going on, with you. And then on the flip side of that, you, for a large part, won't be able to actually see the impact that it truly makes. You won't be able to get an email saying, you've got X, Y, and Z. Is that difficult from running a business point of view? The fact that, you might not necessarily be able to actually see the full effect of what you do and the work you do?
Yeah, I think, I guess that is a thing around working in a space that's proactive and preventative, is that, you're not kind of seeing what could be if your platform potentially isn't there. So there's that side of things. I guess for us, we do a number of measures to get feedback, to see, where we can improve, but also where it's, having a positive effect. So, whether it's using surveys, whether it's, just through anecdotal feedback that they're seeing, that they're providing back to us through testimonials, through me just going to a club and, just having a Thursday night there where I'm just having a chat and chatting to people around, how have you found this? Or, how's the club do here, or whatever it is. So for me, that's what I love. And I'm a face-to-face, I'm a connection kind of person. It's not all about the app. So if I'm kind of getting that kind of feedback, and we're continuing to put ourselves out there to get that sort of feedback, not only positive, but negative, as well as, I guess, some of the de-identified data that we're getting on our side. So, how many people are actually interacting with the activities that are on the app, and how many resources are clubs uploading, and how many tickets are they, or support management tickets are they kind of responding to, and what are the data that we're receiving from that. And so that's all the stuff that we get to see on, I guess, an engagement level that's not identified to any individuals, but more across the board around how the platform's working. And then, you get that kind of more intricate kind of data as we do with feedback and reaching out and having conversations, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, 100%. Talk about breaking through and sort of, I guess, where you see Liminal being its most successful sort of moving forward. So you spoke about the fact that, its original aim, you've sort of fine-tuned it and sort of changed it a bit. As you sort of move forward, and we're moving further and further away from, COVID and what that whole side of things, where do you think you'll be most successful, and where would you like to take it?
To be honest, it's still kind of not too sure, but we want to create as big of an impact as we can. And I think it does start young. So, the state government have put a lot of kind of resources into mental health and mental health prevention, particularly here in Victoria after the Royal Commission. And we really kind of support, I guess, the recommendations that the Royal Commission has made. And I think for us, it does start young. So we see a big impact being particularly in schools, but that doesn't mean that it stops there. And so kind of having that flow of, we're so awesome that we work with kind of some schools. So we work with Wesley College, but now we're also working with their football club. So it's kind of this transition space where, wellbeing is not something that just starts and stops at one point. It's something that you're always working on. So it's always going to be a lifetime resource that, they don't have to always be using the app because we don't expect that. But if we're kind of creating this framework that they can always maybe go back to, or, kind of set out for themselves, and they can use that to continue to reinforce over a period of time, well, then we're going to see our biggest impact. It's not something that, you do a 1 month and you're set and you're feeling great. It's something that you kind of continue to work through. So yeah, as I said, big kind of, I guess, impact in education. That's kind of one of our pillars. We want to do a lot in the community and give back to the community. And that's where we see kind of sport, then more and more in the workplace. And that's something that we haven't really thought about. But again, we've kind of just gone where people have kind of reached out to us a little bit and said that, we would love to use the platform, and we see it really working in here. And it might not even be something that we thought of. We're working with the F45 across 2 gyms, and they're doing a 30-day wellbeing challenge using Liminal. And that's something that I hadn't even thought about before. So from that to then working as a kind of ongoing management tool to an ongoing individual resource, it kind of opens it up. So I guess that's the beauty of the platform that we have. Is quite adaptive, and we get feedback and we can make changes, and it's kind of just really exciting. So I think they're the 3 pillars that we're really kind of working towards, and trying not to stretch ourselves too thin, but trying to make sure that, we're putting a lot of resources into everyone that we work with. So it's an impactful kind of platform for them. Yeah,
no, very well said. We'll finish up on this one. I had Robert Sams from Lifeline Direct, who is an incredibly insightful and intelligent man who's been working in the mental health field for a long time. And I asked him why he felt called to this type of work, because for a large part, it can be very difficult at times. What you hear from people, it can be incredibly heavy and can weigh heavy on you. Why is something like this so, I guess, important for you to be involved in, and say, that you're not working construction, a 9-to-5 job in an office? Like, why is this? What was your pull towards working in this field?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, it does kind of really stem back from as a kid, and that support that my mum and dad both provided me at a very young age, and was very fortunate to do that. And then being able to kind of go again into kind of a high performing environment and have that opportunity and kind of see different sides. And I think it's given me a pretty kind of open view and perspective around, how I can, as an individual, be the biggest impact in supporting others. And I'm not sure exactly why, I kind of feel that way inclined, but we've got so many products out there in the world, and building houses, and people doing this, people doing that. And I felt, for me personally, I didn't think I needed to do something like that, or to kind of go out and create something different. I thought it was just all about coming back to people and making people feel their best. And through kind of, I guess, the platform we're doing, I wanted to kind of give as a kind of open resource, and open kind of agency for people to just take their time to do it themselves. And whether that kind of grows into being more than just a digital platform and more of a face-to-face, I think time will only tell. But for me, I think, people are everything, and that's what makes communities, that's what makes kind of the world go round. So if we're all living a pretty peaceful and happy and spiritual and everything else kind of in this kind of world that we're in, which can be pretty negative at times, then we're all going to be kind of happier with that. So I guess for me, it does kind of come from the environment that you grow up with and kind of your social context. But yeah, I feel like this is the greatest impact that I can make as an individual. So this is kind of why I've gone after it.
Yep, that's a great answer, and you can make a ton of impact with the way you are. For those who, where can we find Liminal? What are all the social media, all that sort of, all the channels? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much on the work. So our website's liminalwellbeing.com.au. And then, we're on the gram, on Facebook, if anyone goes on Facebook anymore. And
No,
then, no, we're on the
it's too
gram, man.
negative.
It is a little bit. And then we're also in person. So, we've got our little office in Essendon as well, which is cool. But yeah, you can certainly see us, our channels, and got a bit of a blog that we run, LinkedIn, if you want to jump on there and see all the stuff that we're up to. And by all means, if you're interested or you work in a business or you're at a footy club or you're a teacher, reach out to us, because we'd love to chat and tell you a bit about the product and where we're kind of, I guess, how we can support you.
Will, thank you very much for coming on and sharing this story about, I guess, not only your football, but your whole journey to doing what you're doing now, which is such incredible work that we really need people in. So thank you very much for being one of those people and for giving me the time.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.